His phone hijacked our vows. A breathy moan rolled out of the church speakers. He called it spam. I called it the truth. I'm not writing this for sympathy. I'm writing it because if the sound system at St. Felix can save one person from a life sentence with the wrong last name, then turn me up to 11. The aisle smelled like eucalyptus and warm candles. Evan's hands were cold. Mine were steady. The pastor said vows, and the board in the balcony flipped from prelude to house mix. Somewhere between the violinist's last chord and my first word, the PA bloomed with a sound no hymn book has footnotes for. Not a ding. Not a chirp. A little breath, the kind you hear in the dark before a bad idea. Heads turned like sunflowers. A cough ricocheted from the third pew. My cousin covered her kid's ears. Evan lifted a smile that didn't belong to his face and said, spam. One word like a trapdoor. Then show me, I said. I didn't raise my voice. The quiet did the work. The sound guy yanked a fader. The church exhaled. Evan's hand hovered over his inner jacket pocket. He stalled in that limbo where you pretend you're complying while your brain drafts an escape plan. My best friend Jules, maid of honor and human lie detector, stepped 1 inch forward and folded her arms. The pastor shifted his weight. The organist stopped breathing. Phone, I said. He took it out like a magician about to eat his own rabbit. Lock screen glowing. Unknown number twice. A third call vibrated. He swiped down, reflex, and I watched him do the thing doomed men do in movies, hide the screen against his chest and step back. Up here, the pastor said, surprised to hear himself speak. We're in the middle of a reveal, I said. Evan palmed the phone as if the glass might bite him and made a choice. He pivoted to the font by the aisle, the one with floating rosemary sprigs, and the phone left his hand in a not-quite accident. Clean arc baptism by panic. It kissed the water and went black like a bad thought diving for cover. A seam ripped somewhere in my head. Not my dress, my faith in coincidence. The PA returned to silence. Someone laughed once out of shock, then swallowed it whole. The pastor asked if we should take a moment. I said, we're taking every moment, and walked down the steps so I wouldn't have to look up at a man I could never look up to again. Jules caught my veil. She didn't ask permission. She asked, sound booth? I nodded. Here's the unsexy truth. Venues cut corners. The rehearsal the night before used Evan's MacBook for a slideshow of baby photos and embarrassing teen hair. He'd logged into messages to airdrop something. Men think multitasking is a personality. They forget it leaves doors open. Up in the balcony, light through stained glass cut the dust into ribbons. The MacBook sat asleep beside the mixer. I touched the trackpad and the screen woke up into a life he thought was private. A message bloomed. A name pinned at the top, Lena Erb. Before you clutch pearls on my ethics, remember that he tried to drown transparency 10 minutes before showtime. My fingers didn't have to guess his password. It was the alarm code to our building. Lazy as a religion. The unknown number called again. The call mirrored to the laptop. I clicked accept with the kind of calm you get when your stomach falls through the floor and you keep talking to make sure gravity knows you're still here. Hello. I put it on speaker. The church is not soundproof. The hush made it feel like one long ear. A woman's voice, not sultry, not dramatic. Tired. Honest by accident. Evan? You didn't send the Uber code for Milo. I'm outside the pediatrician. My phone's at 5%. My mouth did something my brain hadn't approved. Evan's busy pretending he's single. Silence. Then, who is this? The almost misses, I said. Tell me who you are without metaphors. A breath. I'm Lena, she said. I'm pregnant and our son's 4 and he said he told you. He said it was over between you two and that he was moving next week. The church did that thing humans do when truth detonates. We didn't move. We listened with our pores. Evan must have heard her voice through the floor. His shoes appeared on the balcony stairs, then his whole grief shadow. End the call, he said to me. He wasn't whispering. He wasn't begging. He was telling me how he thinks stories work when he directs them. Why would I end the call that finally started the story? I said. I looked at the laptop and spoke to the stranger. How did you meet him? Work, she said. Before the lockdowns. He said he wasn't ready to tell his family that they were intense. Then he told me last month that he had a plan. We lay low until after he relocates. I didn't want to be a secret. He swore I wasn't. He swore you were his past. Down on the floor someone stood. My dad. He held out a hand toward me that meant, pick dignity over drama. The softest ultimatum. Keep talking, I told Lena, and then to my dad, give me 5 minutes to burn what doesn't belong in my house. Evan tried to lunge for the laptop. Jules squared up. It's a special kind of electricity when your best friend bares her teeth at a tuxedo. Touch this computer and you'll meet the business end of my bouquet, she said. Humor when hell opens is a luxury I recommend. Lena, I asked, does he know about the appointment? Does he send money? She laughed without joy. He zells. He calls it help, like our kid is a charity. He said the big money comes later. After logistics. Her voice broke as if she'd accidentally leaned on a keyboard and hit a key called grief. Is he with you? Like right now? He is, I said. In a suit. In front of God and a florist. Then you do what I should have done sooner, she said. You stop the play. No encore. The battery in her phone tapped out with a tone that sounded too cheerful for the moment. The call died. The messages thread blinked, blue bubbles we didn't consent to. I scrolled without mercy. Photos of Milo baking cookies. Ultrasounds labeled B9W. A calendar invite titled Move-In Prep. A note screenshot, Mary appease mom, quiet the ants, separate later. Keep assets safe. Don't look like the bad guy. Bullet points like gardening. I could have torn my dress. I could have torn his face off with words. I didn't. I closed the laptop. I walked back to the altar and took the mic the venue uses for announcements about parking. Ladies and gentlemen, I said, and people I love lifted their faces like flowers asking, please be the weather we need. This event is over. We'll send your favors to your homes. Keep the candles, light them for truths you don't want to meet this way. I placed the mic down like it had done its duty and turned to Evan. Return my time, I said. He didn't understand. Men like that understand money better than time. Consider the license unfiled, I told the pastor. Consider my dress a uniform for someone else's war. I'm leaving your battlefield. I walked past the pew where his mother sat with 3 versions of disappointment written across her forehead. She opened her mouth. I held up one finger. One sentence measured, if you knew, you failed me. If you didn't, he failed us both. She closed her mouth. Sometimes the most merciful thing you can do is hand someone the mirror they avoid. Outside, the sky had the indecency to be beautiful. Jules had my car keys already. She knows my panic tilts into action if you let it. Where? She asked. Bank, I said. Then my apartment. Then a lawyer. You can stand on a cliff and write poetry about the view, or you can measure the drop and build a bridge. We drove. I stared at my hands. They didn't shake. They made fists and then opened. I said out loud to convince the air, you're not a fool. You loved honestly. He didn't. The city didn't argue. At the bank, the manager recognized my bouquet and my face from the wedding website. That's the nasty little side effect of putting your joy on the internet. Your unjoy has witnesses. I need to freeze the joint, I said. He is not authorized to move a penny without my signature. As of this exact minute. The manager, who had eyes like a safety net, nodded and printed forms like spells. While we signed, a notification rattled the inside of my skull. The venue's Dropbox updated. The MacBook had been syncing. Every screenshot I'd just seen, calendar invites, that bullet list of cowardice transfers labeled gift, was mirroring into my life like a rescue. I didn't have to break into anything. I only had to stop pretending polite people don't look. Jules whispered, lawyer next. I texted mine. She said to come now. Says the word receipts like a prayer. The church text thread pinged with a cousin asking if we were okay. I typed, we are. He isn't. Go home. Keep your favors. Burn the ribbon if you want drama. We pulled up to the law office. Glass doors, plant that had seen too much. A receptionist with eyebrows that understood. By dusk, the paper version of me had already started rebuilding. My lawyer, a woman who wore black like it was armor and math, read the screenshots, nodded at the joint account freeze, asked about the ring, insured. Yes, and said, we're filing 3 letters, to his employer, to yours, to the venue about refunds. We're sending him a proposal, mediation instead of fire. You'll get back the deposits, damages for intentional infliction of emotional distress. If we push, and a non-disparagement clause he'll break eventually, but it'll cost him when he does. You're lucky this happened before you filed the license. Luck sometimes wears a ruined dress. I cried once in her bathroom into tissue that didn't deserve it. Then I washed my face and put my hair behind my ears like I do when I pack for trips. My body needed to know we were going somewhere else. Back home, Mom texted, "We love you." Dad sent a period. That's his version of, "I'd move a continent for you, say the word." I lay on the floor and watched my ceiling fan carve the air into fifths. Somewhere in the house, a champagne bottle waited for a future that changed. I didn't feel like mourning. Mourning implies something worthy died. What died was a plan written in bullets by a man who uses love like a ladder. I turned my phone to airplane, then turned it back on because courage isn't quiet. I typed one more message to a stranger who'd become a mirror. "Lena, it's me. I'm not angry at you. We've both been fed the same lie. If you want help, I have a lawyer. If you want silence, I can give you that too. If you want to stop being a secret, we can do that first." Her dots appeared, then disappeared, then appeared again. I waited. That's the last kind of waiting I intend to do. He didn't sleep at our apartment that night. Not because I told him not to, because the locks changed. He tried the old code anyway. The door didn't care about nostalgia. I slept on the couch with a pen and yellow pad on my chest like a nightlight. When the brain is betrayed, it overlogs. I wrote everything I could remember he'd said in the last year that didn't taste right in hindsight. Family would never accept us. Separate accounts are unromantic. We can always annul if it gets weird with my uncle's trust. You know what's unromantic? A spreadsheet where you are a line item titled contingency. In the morning, my front steps had white petals on them from people who didn't get the memo. I swept them into a bag and labeled it "Compost the Lies." Jules texted, "Coffee?" I answered with the address of a cafe halfway between my place and a pediatrician's office I'd Googled against the map pin that had popped up in one of Lena's messages. I'm not a detective. I'm a woman tired of being out of the room where decisions get made about my life. The cafe belonged to someone who'd been broken and decided to make a business out of cinnamon instead of ashes. At 9, the bell rang and a woman with yesterday's mascara and a brand new spine walked in with a 4-year-old whose curls had their own opinions. "Milo," she said to him, pointing at me, "this is the nice lady I told you about. You can color while we talk." He beelined for the crayons like joy was his job. I wanted him to keep it. Lena sat. We didn't hug. We didn't need contact to recognize kinship. She pulled out a folder the way you pull a splinter, firm, focused. "Timeline," she said. "Because he's good at fog." She had receipts that weren't just screenshots. Paperwork from daycare with his name as emergency contact but not father. A transfer from a checking account that aligned to the same last 4 digits as a card I'd seen in our kitchen bowl. Venmo captions that were little crimes, for pizza, for sitter, for doctor, each payment landing like a breadcrumb path to his version of responsible. He wasn't wholly absent. That's what makes men like him persuasive. "I believed him," she said. "Because belief makes fewer waves. Because I wanted a family more than I wanted the truth." Until the truth arrived on a Sunday with a Bluetooth and a breathy noise. We traded stories like baseball cards. My engagement timeline, his sudden need for a prenup, just to protect inheritances. The way he insisted on running all deposits through his account first to simplify taxes. His refusal to let me see his phone after 10 p.m. because work boundaries. Her weekends where he always had to visit his grandmother, with no photos taken, no FaceTimes allowed, the way he said the word custody like a threat instead of a plan. "We live in the same city," I said, incredulous all over again. He made us portals in each other's map labeled forbidden. She slid her phone over. An email, subject, "Quiet plan." You don't have to be original to be evil. The body was a blueprint. Not Hollywood. Not mustache twirl. Just tidy. Get married quietly. Commute for a bit for optics. Separate once pressure eases. Make sure assets stay siloed. Keep things amicable to avoid looking like bad guy. He had forwarded the blueprint to his friend with the note, "You were right. Marriage is a publicist." I read that line twice so I wouldn't dismiss it as a hallucination. "I can testify," Lena said, her jaw set. "If it comes to court. I have no desire to blow up your life further, but I also have no interest in letting him script me as a mistake. You and I are not his lesson," I said. "We're his consequences." She looked at me the way you look at a cliff and finally see the bridge. What do you need? Your story, I said. On paper. My lawyer will stitch it with mine. He'll try to settle fast to protect the image he worships. We'll let him. But not cheap. I took a breath big enough to reset something. Also, keep screenshots of everything. Don't trust clouds you don't own. Milo toddled over with a drawing, 3 stick figures and a sun. He pointed to the tallest with the biggest smile. That one's you, he told me as if he'd found the role I'd auditioned for and forgot to name. I taped the drawing inside my journal. Sometimes strangers' children know who you're becoming before you do. I left the cafe with a folder that felt like a shield. In the parking lot, Evan's text finally arrived through the dam. We need to talk like adults. The drama you did yesterday was cruel. You embarrassed my family. None of this is black and white. I typed, erased, typed again, decided on starvation instead of a feast. Bring your calendar. Bring your checkbook. Bring humility. We'll see you at mediation. He replied with acid disguised as civility. I turned my phone face down, the new ritual. Silence can be sharp. The venue's manager called about refunds. Most vendors will return 70% if the event didn't happen, she said. I'm sending their emails. There it was, the outline of a budget to heal with. My lawyer tallied potential recovery like a chef glances at a pantry and imagines dinner. Some money back from the caterer. Most from the florist. All from the DJ because their open-pair Bluetooth policy had turned my vows into a public service announcement. At noon, I signed a formal letter to Evan through counsel. Preserve all digital evidence. No contact except through the mediator. Attempt settlement within 30 days. Words like fence post. He signed receipt within the hour. Men who love image love formality when it rescues them. The afternoon belonged to boxes. Not the melodramatic kind. The practical. I packed away the mugs with the wedding date and drove them straight to Goodwill. I packed the guest book we didn't use and wrote a new cover. People who actually know me. I ripped up place cards and felt exactly nothing. There is mercy in discovering that what you thought would hurt no longer has purchase. At 4, I met my dad at the locksmith to swap the front door like swapping out an organ you never asked for. He said one sentence that pinned me back to childhood in the best possible way. I'll carry the heavy, you carry the exact. We worked in silence. Not the tense kind. The serious kind. At 5, I drafted a message to friends and family. I'm okay. The wedding is canceled. This is not up for debate. Please don't reach out to him. You'll be tempted and it won't help. If you love me by not trying to fix a man whose hobby is breaking. At 6, Lena texted, lawyer? I sent the contact. 30 seconds later, thank you. Then I'm scared. Then, I'm also relieved. Then, after a beat, Milo wants to know if you like blue popsicles. Yes, I answered. Blue is the flavor of surviving. By 8, the sun slipped behind the brick buildings like it needed a minute. I stood at my window with a glass of water like a toasting minimalist. My reflection didn't look ruined. It looked edited. Here's the opinion part, the one I'm not apologizing for. If a man's strategy for love includes a spreadsheet, you are not a partner, you are a lever. If his apologies are logistics and his truths are bullet points, he is outsourcing his conscience. People like that don't deserve your patience. They deserve your boundaries. I put on sneakers and walked the block, not to clear my head but to feel my legs do what legs do. Move you out of rooms where your name has been mispronounced by someone who benefits from the mistake. When I got back, a letter from his mother waited in my inbox. It said, we could have worked this out as a family. It said, you didn't need to humiliate him. It said, you owe us a conversation. I replied with 4 lines, my legal counsel's email, the date of mediation, the list of refunds being sought, and one final sentence. Your son's choices are not a group project. Night came. I turned out the lights and lay in the middle of my bed like a compass finding north. The quiet didn't scare me. It sounded like my real life clearing its throat. Mediation lives in a beige building with carpets designed to hide coffee stains and bad decisions. The conference room table had a bowl of mints that tasted like trying to make things okay with sugar. I brought my folder. My lawyer brought 3 pens and a machine that prints consequences. Evan walked in with a jaw freshly shaved and a suit that fit better than the truth. He didn't look at me first. Men like that scan the room for allies and cameras. He saw neither. The mediator shook hands and spoke the dialect of adults who herd teenagers for a living. We're here to find a resolution, she said. We keep our voices measured and our points specific. We assume good faith until it is mathematically impossible. I slid the first page across, the timeline. The second, the screenshot of quiet plan. The third, the DJ's open pair policy and the incident report that read like parody. The fourth, bank activity on the joint account the morning of the wedding, the transfer request that had failed because I'd frozen it between my exhale and inhale. He blinked at that like a magician whose trick rabbit bit him. You were moving funds before the ceremony? The mediator asked, neutral tone, blade underneath. It was a deposit for the movers, he said too quickly. My lawyer raised an eyebrow that contained 1,000 cross-examinations. We kept going. Lena's affidavit. Photos of Milo with his father in parks 2 neighborhoods away from my house on days I believed he was with his grandmother. The email to his friend about marriage being a publicist. The proposed settlement, full reimbursement of all wedding-related expenses paid by me, a payment for the venue's cancellation penalties, legal fees, a written acknowledgement of factual wrongdoing to be held in escrow, delivered only if he breaks non-disparagement. He tried on 3 masks, remorse then outrage then logic. Remorse didn't fit. Outrage burned hot for 2 minutes and fizzled when presented with documents. Logic he wore the longest, calm voice, both sides. You have to admit, no one is perfect, but the math on the table walled him in. Numbers do not care about your charisma. He offered half of the cost. We countered with all. He tried to bargain with time, installments, later dates. We countered with a short runway and a lien if he missed a step. My lawyer's pen scratched and the room smelled like paper and endings. He looked at me once, long enough to try a spell. We could have made it work, he said. If you weren't so dramatic. I'm not dramatic, I said. I'm decisive. Then, because truth amplifies when you hand it the mic, you wanted me for a photograph, not a life. We broke for coffee. In the hallway I texted Lena. He's offering half. She wrote, he owes whole. People think solidarity is a chant. Sometimes it's just 2 women refusing to blink. Back in the room, the mediator slid the pen toward him with a softness that made refusal look childish. He signed. I watched ink commit a version of justice. The ring sat heavy on the table between us. Insured, appraised, a little monument to the plans of a man who underestimates women. He wanted it back. I slid a copy of the insurance policy across that said if the event didn't happen, the buyer could return it for full refund to his own account. Take it, I said. Buy yourself a mirror. We finalized dates. Refunds within 14 days, fees within 30, acknowledgement letter in escrow, non-disparagement active for 5 years with a clause that facts are not slander. He flinched at that last part. Men who market their lives hate clauses that make truth an asset you can't confiscate. The mediator thanked us for our civility. Civility is a weird word in rooms where your heart has a paper trail. We left. The sky was the color of second chances. At home I opened windows. I let the street noise in like music. I wrote an email to the guests with a link to a photo the photographer had taken in the chaos. Me on the balcony, hand on the laptop, chin up, jewels at my shoulder like a well-armed angel. I typed, keep this one. It's not the day we planned, but it's the day I started telling the truth out loud. Then I did something no one expects when your wedding implodes. I threw a tiny party for one. Nothing dramatic. A cupcake. A candle. A wish, may my standards stay taller than my loneliness. I blew it out and felt something end that needed to. Lena texted a picture of Milo eating a blue popsicle, mouth stained like graffiti. He says hi, she wrote. He asked if you will come to the park sometime. No pressure. I said yes without theater. The future doesn't have to be a sermon. It can be a walk that smells like grass. Night again. I took off the last bobby pin and put it in a jar labeled keep. The parts of me I almost gave up to a story that didn't deserve me. I washed my face. I looked in the mirror and said the line I wish someone had taught me at 16. You are not hard to love. He was lazy. I won't pretend the next mornings were all sunrise. Grief is a creature with good hearing. It will come when the kettle boils, when you pass the aisle with the cake toppers, when a song you didn't know you attached meaning to rolls through a grocery store. Let it sit in the passenger seat. Do not hand it the wheel. People asked for closure. Closure is a sales pitch. I picked clarity instead. Clarity says, I was about to sign a contract with a man who thinks marriage is a PR strategy. Clarity says I stopped. Clarity says, That's the happy ending, no slow violin required. A week later, the last refund hit. My lawyer emailed a subject line that tasted like fresh air. Settlement complete. Attached, a PDF with his acknowledgement of conduct and a check image with more zeros than his excuses. It didn't undo anything. It funded my next right choice. I moved apartments. Not across town, across a hallway into sunlight. Different windows, same street. That's how I prefer my revolutions. Measured, intentional, mine. I bought a kitchen table with my own name on the receipt. I hung wind chimes because I like the idea that even air wants to talk to me. On the first night in the new place, I stood barefoot on the balcony with a mug and said the only vow I needed: I will not audition for roles in other people's alibis. If a phone moans through the speakers of my life again, I will treat it like a fire alarm, not a soundtrack. You want the receipts? They exist. They're boring in the way all adult heroism is boring. PDFs, timestamps, signatures, a mediation transcript where a woman kept her voice and got her life back. If the internet taught me anything this week, it's that spectacle loves scandal, but healing loves calendars and keyboards. I didn't get the wedding I planned. I got something quieter and sharper. I got out. If you're reading this because you heard a sound at the wrong moment and your gut yelled louder than the room, here's your map. Pause the ceremony. Get the facts. Save the files. Freeze the money. Call a lawyer who believes in arithmetic. Tell the truth even if your voice shakes or your dress costs more than your first car. Walk out like the building is on fire and you are not responsible for teaching the flames manners. I didn't marry a man. I married my standards. And for the first time all weekend I said yes and meant it. If you want the boring proofs the internet loves, say the word receipts. If you want the better thing, keep the line: his phone hijacked our vows. I took them back.